Good day and welcome to Code Escuela. In this session, we will discuss about the if statement. An if statement is a kind of statement that you can use to perform different actions based on certain conditions. Let's dive in straight into our code example. Okay, so now we have here, I have prepared a example for demonstrating the if statement. Okay, so now let's focus our attention here on line 7, wherein we have declared a int variable which is named score. Okay, and so here in line 9 we have our first example of an if statement. Okay, so an if statement is formed like this. Okay, so you have your keyword if, and then with you have the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis is your expression. Okay, one thing to remember: inside this parenthesis, this expression should evaluate or should result into a Boolean value, which means it could either be true or false. Okay, so in this case, in our example, we have score is equal to 0, and then next to that is we have these curly braces. This would be the body of our if statement. Okay, so inside that we have a simple uh, method here, which is writeLine, console.writeLine, which says bonus is 0. Okay, so as an example, for example, if you're building a game or creating a game, uh, one of the things that are included in a game is, for example, adding bonuses to the players when they finish a certain level. So this would be kind of like that. So you see, you have used an if statement here. So this would be the most basic form of an if statement. Okay, so you can place any set of expressions here inside the parenthesis, and that should evaluate into a true value. Okay, so if we try to run this one, just hit this play button, and we should be able to see the result of this code. Okay, right? So now you can see in our display or in our console window, we have this bonus 0, which means that it has executed the code within this if statement. Okay, okay, let's move on to the next example. So let's comment this section out. Okay, now let's focus our attention on these lines. Okay, let's remove the comments, and then let's see what else we can do with if. Okay, so again, we have initialized a variable, which is in this case score is equal to 10, and then we have our if statement here, and then we have our expression, which means score is in this symbol. This would mean less than or equal to 10. Okay, if you're curious as to what is that, since the Visual Studio characters would immediately convert your less than or equal to this kind of symbol, it should be, or internally it would be like this. Okay, an arrow, left arrow, and then this equal symbol or character. Okay, this would mean less than or equal to, but in this case Visual Studio would convert the character into a single character, which would look like this. Okay, so if you focus on the symbol, they have here the Boolean operator, which is less than or equal to. Okay, that would be its correct representation. Okay, and then you also notice that we have this elf section. I mean, sorry, we have this else section. Okay, this else is an optional part of the if statement. Okay, so this is one variation of your if statement. So what this means is that if this condition does not evaluate to true, we execute this section of code. Okay, so you have to remember that. Okay, If this is not true, then we will execute this. If this is true, then we will execute code within this body. Okay, so this would be like a sort of like a, you can think of it like a default action. Okay, if none of the conditions are met, then just execute another action. Okay, by default, sort of like that. Okay, so now if you will try to execute this one and see the result, you see, since we have initialized score is equal to 10, which means that it hits our first statement. I mean, first condition, the if expression, score is less than or equal to 10, which means it would output bonus plus 10, right? Now let's modify this a bit and set this as 11, okay? Then uh, this should execute this body of code, okay? The else section. Okay, let's try running this again. And you can see that it indeed executed and outputted a result of bonus plus 20. Okay, right. Let's exit that from that console, and then that would be the if else statement. Okay, it's a variation of our if statement. Okay, next up, we will focus here on another variation of the if statement. Okay, with the if statement, you can chain multiple if statements. Okay, so here on line 29, we declared a score variable and then initialized it into 10. And then we have our first condition. If score is less than or equal to 10, then we execute this body. Okay. Next, after that, you have noticed that we have this part else, and then we uh, added the if. Okay. So you have, again, inside the parenthesis, you will have the expression that would evaluate to a Boolean value. Okay, so this is read as score if score is greater than or equal to 10, and if that score is less than or equal to 20, which means that if the value of score is within 10 and 20, then we would execute the code here inside here, which means that it would execute this code bonus plus 20, right? Or else, if that doesn't get satisfied, or if that fails, then it would just execute this final section of code, the else or the default, right? So now, this is one way of doing a specific action based on multiple different conditions. Okay, actually, you can chain multiple else if. You can have another line here, ever for whatever reason or whatever logic or condition that you're trying to build, and then yeah, just keep chaining on your conditions. Okay, so in that case, just remove that a quick example, and so yeah, that would be your else if variant of the if statement. Okay, so let's try executing this one, see the results. All right, so yeah, because it executed this line because the value of score is 10. Now if we, let's exit it out, this out, and then let's modify this. Let's try hitting this condition. Okay, set it to let's say 15. Okay, and see the result, and then the result would be 20. So yeah, as expected. And then if we set the score a much higher number, then we're expecting to have a result of 0. Okay, or yeah, maybe a much greater number of bonus points. Okay, in that case, so yeah, we hit the default one, which is this one. Okay, okay, great. Next is, I think we're at the end of the if statement. So yeah, that would be the uh, different variations of if. So you have the simplest form, which is this one, if, and then another variation would be if and then else, and then you have also this one, this if and else if. You can have multiple conditions that you want satisfied and perform actions on them. Okay, and lastly, if your body or the body of your if statements are short or one liner, then you don't need to add the curly braces. You can just put a single line here, then it would still get executed. All right, provided your lines are one liner code. Okay, so I think that is most of what we can discuss about if. In this session has been all about if statement. Thank you for joining us in this learning and see you in our next session.